waste, buildings, and social implications of transition. I would also take this opportunity to thank our knowledge partners who have been very instrumental in their contributions in shaping some of these reports. Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy, Council for Energy, Environment, Water, WRI, iForest. With this, let me conclude my opening remarks and request DG ICAR for his opening remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh Sanji, Sri BVR Subramaniam ji, all the colleagues and friends. First of all, let me thank NITI for this opportunity, and also would like to compliment the NITI for bringing this series of reports on the scenarios towards the net zero. And I think the report on agriculture is something very, very important. But when we talk about agriculture and contribution towards the net zero, we also need to see in terms of the productivity and the livelihood of the farmers. And there is a lot of opportunity towards contribution of agriculture to the net zero. Agriculture is both source and sink of the emissions. And from that perspective, adaptation and mitigation together. So the mitigation co-benefits of the technologies which helps in adaptation is a lot of opportunity. And not only achieving the net zero, but I think that co-benefit of the mitigation can also contribute to the livelihood of the farmers through incentivizing farmers with the carbon credits and ecosystem services, which is now moving in India. The government of India in this new government, even in the first 100 days, made a plan to on the carbon credits. And we see the carbon credits are being issued. There are recent updates on the carbon credits, even in the Indo-Gangetic plains, in the rice wheat systems. I think in terms of the mitigation co-benefits, and if you see the opportunity, we did some exercise earlier, and the new numbers are coming into the report. But we see the cost-effective mitigation opportunities in Indian agriculture is large. At least 100 million tons of the carbon dioxide equivalent is cost-effective. But I think that's almost 1/3. We may have maybe a 300 million tons of the carbon dioxide equivalent opportunity in Indian agriculture. And from that perspective, I think this scenario analysis and this report is truly going to help us. Not only us, means research, but I think the people who are in the carbon marketplace, who can see where are the opportunities for them to build the carbon markets. So this report is going to help everyone, all stakeholders. And I think building resilience of Indian agriculture. In past, we have seen despite all the odds, I think we are building good resilience in Indian agriculture. If you see the past few years of our production figures, despite the fact that we got a lot of climatic uncertainties, still we are doing really good. Last 1 year was exceptional in terms of food grain production, horticultural production. In 1 year, we could add 25 million tons of the food grains, despite some of those risks. But I think a long way to go. And we see a lot of yield gaps, particularly the management yield gaps. And those management yield gaps can also be bridged when we bring this opportunity from the mitigation. For example, a lot of technologies, we are pushing regenerative agriculture and other aspects. Still, there are issues on the behavior, on the adoption of those technologies. But the newer dimension through the mitigation and translating that into the incentive through carbon credit is not going to only help in terms of minimizing the emission or contributing to the net zero, but also going to contribute in terms of the behavioral change, because money changes the behavior. So I think this is very, very exciting. And we look forward to make good use of the report, to translate the report into the action. Whatever research issues are there, we will focus on those issues, and whatever aspect we can take at the ground in the developmental programs, we'll make. So my congratulations to the NITI for bringing those very, very important and exciting reports. With this, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm running a bit fast because the climate change is very fast, and we have to be very fast in our action. So I'm trying to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mangi Lagjatji, for your remarks. And now may I request CEO NITI Aayog, Shri B.V.R. Subramaniam ji, for his address.
Respected member NITI Aayog, Dr. Ramesh Chand, my colleagues from NITI, Anshu, members of the audience. I think for many of you, about more than half of you have been here now since yesterday around this time. So, this can be a bit of a drag, hearing the same story again and again, the same record going here and again and again. But the important thing is, you will notice that each session has a different context, perspective, and focus. And this one is actually going to be quite dramatically different. We have traditionally associated with climate change and transition with energy, industry, transport, and then we tend to stop there. Whereas we are actually going into new areas here. And the story is not complete without all that, Like a good Hindi movie, you need 2 songs, 1 tragedy, couple of fights, and a happy ending. If you want a happy ending, you have to handle all parts of the story, and this is part of the story. And the issues being covered today, 4 of them, are all very fundamental and they're all interlinked. We are talking about issues which are actually people-centric. They are so fundamentally close to our lives. We always forget that. Why are we bothered about climate change? I mean, hell with it. Let's blow up the planet with carbon dioxide or whatever. It's not because in itself it is good or bad. It's bad or good to human beings. And that's how we come to that. So we can't forget the human dimension of all this. And I think that's what this particular session is about. It's bringing together the last of the 4 reports in the series of 11 which we'll be releasing today. It covers the social sector. What is the social aspect of this transition if you want to go for net zero? How are human beings' lives going to be affected? That's number 1. 2, in a country of India's composition or economy, where half the workforce is actually dependent on agriculture and related activities, what is the impact of transition on these people? That's 50%. And agriculture is a significant contributor, not just in Indian context, but global context to emissions. So how do we handle that? I mean, it's almost like something people just want to avoid even talking about it in this context. They think, there will be something happening there if we raise that issue. But if you don't raise that issue, you'll never solve the problem, and then it'll hit you worse. The other 2 issues are also buildings where we live and work, and about waste is what we generate. All of them are closely linked to the net zero goals which we have laid out. Now, let's go into each aspect quickly before the presenter gives you a more detailed thing. Let's talk about buildings. As we said, this country is planning to go from 4 trillion to 30 trillion by 2047 and be even larger by 2070. We want to be net zero by 2070. What does it mean? In the morning, we spoke about huge jump in consumption of stuff which is produced in industry. There is also going to be a huge growth in space which we occupy, and that is buildings. It could be office, commercial, or residential. All of that will grow, and grow in a magnitude which we have not seen in the past. The model estimates that almost 5/6 of India's space, 85%, is not yet built. So that is 86% of India of 2070, the buildings have yet to be built. However efficient you become, however compact you become, you don't have US-size houses with, the average area to an individual in the US on the household is 2,500 square feet per person. We'll be happy to have a house of that size for a whole family. These are numbers which are known. Even if you economize on all that, there will be a an explosion in housing in the country. There will be an explosion in commercial space in the country. So how does it impact us? A, being in a hot country, the cooling load will go up. Air conditioning ownership is in, single digits right now, less than 10%. It will go almost 80%, 85%. That's a huge jump in cooling load, which will again translate onto your energy system. And it could be commercial or residential, this demand will be there. So we need to tackle that. And there are solutions available. You can go for more efficient appliances, you can have better building design, you can have better building materials, you have better construction technologies, better styles, you use better materials. But we must remember one thing. I keep saying, Viksit Bharat 2047, 90% of the workforce of Viksit Bharat in 2047 is already born. Because somebody born today is going to be 21 years in 2047. So the workforce of 2047 is already around us. And if we don't invest in them now, what kind of a workforce are we? We're not going to invest in a workforce of 2047 in 2046. Similarly, the buildings of 2070 are buildings which are going to be locked into very soon. And you are not going to pull down all these buildings because you don't like them, because they don't meet your net zero goals. You need to lock them in very early on. As somebody said in the morning, build it right and build it early on the right way. So I think that's the importance of buildings, and not to get locked in, and I think that's one of the things which will be kind of discussed in this session. The second one is equally important, which is agriculture. Apart from supporting 50% of the workforce, agriculture has peculiar characteristics as far as emissions are concerned. The emissions problem there is not carbon dioxide. It's methane and nitrogen oxides of various types. One comes from animals, and the other comes because of fertilizer. Again, both are intrinsic. I mean, you just can't stop it at the drop of a hat. In the morning I mentioned that the industrial sector is one area where there will be residual emissions still going into 2070. However good you become, there will be some residual emission. Agriculture is another sector that however good you become, whatever changes, you can't change the technology of a cow, right? So it will still be what it is. You may change the diet, you may pump some chemicals into its stomach, it's still going to ferment, right? That's the digestion process. So there will be residual emissions from agriculture, and I think that's what we'll be talking about. All these efficiency and other efforts will bring it down by a few tens of percentage points, but I think that will need to be handled. The second thing is, this is not something, this is about human beings, human lives and their livelihoods. These are not inanimate stuff. So shifting and changing in agriculture is going to be a big process. Of course, there's going to be an associated thing that as the economy grows, you'll see a movement of people from agriculture to industry and services for livelihood. That's a larger phenomenon which will be happening simultaneously along with the challenge of addressing net zero. The third thing we'll be looking at today is waste. Now, the importance of waste here is not because your dumps also generate methane and other gases. It's about the potential for waste for recycling and reducing your consumption of other things. We alluded to circularity. One of the 5 principles I mentioned is circularity and efficiency. The circularity will come from waste. So the more efficient you are in actually handling waste and recirculating it, it reduces your demand for iron ore, for other ores. It will reduce your demand for battery raw materials. A lot of these stuff actually comes back from, including cement raw material. Again, it comes from recycling. So I think this is there. A lot of the construction waste can actually go back into roads. And then, it can up to 20 to 30% of the ballast can be construction waste. So I think that's the other area which they've worked on. And last but not the least is, you saw this in the graph yesterday in the opening presentation in the overview a little bit, and you saw it a little bit in the, I think in the morning on the energy part, that there is going to be a shift in the landscape of employment in the country. There are large regions of India which have a fossil fuel dependent economy. Also possibly fossil fuel dependent industrialization. A lot of that will change in character when you start becoming a renewable energy dependent economy. So the places will be different, and therefore people will be the same. So you need to actually retool, reskill these people so that they get employment. This is going to be a major challenge of net zero. And I think that's an important aspect which will have to be attended to. And this won't happen at the flip of a button, because these are human beings. They have sets of skills. They probably need to be retrained, possibly. I mean, I want sun in one part of the country, it doesn't. Sun decides where it will come, right? So you'll have to move people. So this is a much more difficult exercise. And associated with that is also about human behavior. Because about the third thing which I talked about, the 5-point plan, is cutting down demand itself. Some cutting down of demand comes from design, but some cutting down of demand comes from human behavior. The Prime Minister's Mission Life is all about that, switching off lights, increasing the baseline temperature of an air conditioner, all that stuff is there. But culturally we are suited for that. We don't throw away old stuff, we wait for the kabadi wala. In the South, I know we recycle old clothes and get utensils in return. This is there in our psyche. So it's just that we are probably forgetting it in our new urban ecosystem. We'll have to bring that, and I think that's what we will all be talking about. And the moment we are going into areas like agriculture, waste, etc., we have to start looking at who are the people who will handle them. It can't be done from Delhi. It will have to be in active participation with state governments, local bodies, etc. They have a major role in all this. So I think the most complex part of net zero will be brought out in this session, which we will be having. A lot of hard work has gone into it. Dr. Jat left us, but his colleagues, and many organizations have worked hard on various elements of these 4 reports. I thank all of them, thank Anshu for their work, and I look forward to this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri B.V.R. Subramaniam, sir, for your inputs. And may I now invite Shri Nitin Bajpai from NITI Aayog for the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can we have the slides, please? I'll just start following to the previous session on industry, transport, and power sector with critical requirements of these sectors. I'll quickly touch upon the building sector, waste and agriculture sector, along with the social implication of this envisioned transition. The analysis we are talking about is informed through different suite of models, most of which are developed in-house at NITI, and these models are projected to develop 2 scenarios, current policy scenarios and net zero scenarios. Current policy scenarios wherein we reflect the ongoing policies of the government, and within net zero scenarios, these policies are made more ambitious to achieve the net zero goal for the economy. I'll go to each sector one by one. Building sector. Building sector have been analyzed for 3 different segments. Residential sector, wherein a differential approach have been undertaken for urban and rural household. Commercial sector, wherein different type of building typologies have been analyzed like hospitals, hotels, retail, and 9 to 10 different set of building typologies, and emerging load centers such as data centers, cooling infrastructure, cold chain infrastructures as well. And finally, the cooking energy need as well. When we talk about Viksit Bharat, floor space implications are significant. As we can see from this graph, and CEO sir also highlighted that most of the India, around 80 to 90% that will exist in 2070 is yet to be built, giving us the opportunity to build this sustainably from the outset without locking in the buildings which consumes higher energy. Another point, pain point within building sector is the growing thermal comfort or cooling requirements. As we can see from this graph, India have the maximum cooling requirement globally with 4 trillion person cooling degree days. Yet we are amongst the lowest in terms of AC ownership, signifying the latent cooling demand which is ahead of us. The study projects this AC ownership to 65% by 2047 and further to 80% by 2070. And accordingly, the sales are projected to increase by 10 times by 2050. And this will have significant energy implications as well. We can see from this graph, cooling demands increase around more than 3 times under the current policy scenario, and can be moderated to around 2.5 times in net zero scenario. But there is a large efficiency frontier distance which we need to bridge. We can see from this graph, the minimum energy performance standard for air conditioning equipment is well below the world's best energy performing standards. However, in the net zero scenario, we project it further to global best technologies to bridge this gap with which have significant potential to reduce the electricity requirement from the residential building sector. Moving ahead, we have modeled the cooking sector as well. We can see the energy demand for the cooking sector will go down significantly, primarily due to the phasing out of traditional inefficient biomass used in households, which will be replaced by efficient technologies such as LPG, PNG, electricity, and LPG, PNG exist in 2070 as well. Due to behavioral concern of Indian cooking system and also utilizing the large build-out of LPG infrastructure, LNG infrastructure in India. Moving further, this graph presents the overall building energy requirement of the sector. It may look that energy demand for building sector is not growing much, but most of the energy demand that exists today is from the cooking sector, which will go down significantly, while residential demand will grow up by four times, and similarly commercial building energy demand. One of the key highlight is the growing data center or growing AI and computing requirements, which will drive the data center energy demand, most of which needs to be managed by better power usage effectiveness standards and utilization factors. I'm just pointing out two key suggestions that emerge out of the report. Most of these are well detailed in the report, building sector report. One is the incorporation of building code in municipal bylaws, which is currently in just 5% of the municipalities, and also the SDAs. Only 2 states have dedicated SDAs as of now. Like we need to have dedicated SDAs to and develop the skills to manage this expansion of growing floor space. Second is the appliance efficiency improvement. We saw like how much potential the appliance efficiency have to reduce the building energy requirement and consequently the load on the power sector as well. Moving ahead, I'll go to the agriculture sector. Historically, agriculture emissions are consistent around 400 million ton in last 10 to 5 years, with maximum contribution from enteric fermentation, followed by rice cultivation and agricultural soils. In our modeling work, the agriculture sector is modeled, as also highlighted by CEO sir, with the adaptation first lens. Agriculture sector underpins farmer livelihoods and remains the largest employer, and hence the interventions are adopted to improve yield, income, and develop climate resilience among the agriculture sector of India, which can offer co-benefits to mitigate emissions. These are detailed set of intervention which are modeled through 2070, like cropping intensity, crop diversification, improving the yield, chemical-free or natural farming, and reducing open burning through better utilization of agri-residue via bio-CNG production, biofertilizer production, and through these set of intervention, we can see the mitigation potential is not that significant. Around 27% of emissions can be managed under the net zero scenarios through such interventions, while the rice emissions are projected to reduce, while the enteric fermentation will still contribute the maximum to the agricultural non-energy emission. Agriculture sector also have the energy implication. We have modeled 2 high energy consuming activities within agriculture sector, which are pumping and land preparation. Within pumping, we need to also note that there is a reducing water table, which will increase the energy demand of the agriculture sector for pumping need. And the other one is the land preparation. We talk about 100% or universal farm mechanization as a key indicator of development, which will also drive the energy demand of the agriculture sector. We can also see from this graph that most of the future energy need can be met through solar energy, and also pumping load is highly schedulable, and this can smoothen or help smoothen the load curve of the power sector. Within asset program of NITI, we are already working with 13 municipal corporations to manage this pumping load to high solar peak hours. I'll move to the next sector, waste. As we have seen in previous session, that industrial production is projected to grow by 4 to 5 times, is visible here in waste generation as well. Industrial wastewater plus solid waste generation is projected to grow significantly. Historically, waste generation is increasing by 1.3%, which is capped around 0.6 kg per capita per day due to better choices, behavioral choices to reduce waste, consume less. if we through these waste generation, if you look at waste sector GHG emission, this is projected to nearly double under current policy scenario by 2070, which can come down significantly through better processing technologies like anaerobic digestion, better utilization of waste, and through different set of technologies to manage different type of waste. Just want to highlight in this slide that waste management is not just an environmental issue, but it is a resource recovery opportunity as well. These waste have embodied energy and valuable minerals, which can reduce reliance on virgin minerals as well. However, to achieve this, we talk about 100% door-to-door collection under Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, 100% treatment of collected wastewater, setting up of material recycling facility, integrated facilities, bio-CNG production through methanation or anaerobic digestion of this waste. Finally, last but not the least, social implication of transition. We have examined the human dimension of the transition in the phase of transition in terms of land, water, health, and employment. If you look at land requirement, it is projected to grow by 4 to 6 million hectare for power generation activities, including green hydrogen production, which is currently well below 0.5 million hectares. So we can see the magnitude of the land required to produce or to meet this transition need. India have around 17% of wasteland, out of which 8 to 11% may be required for this, this purpose of new power generation capacity. And to manage this, we need to promote land-neutral solution like agri-PV, rooftop solar, floating solar. We need to have better siting tool to better utilize land through better transmission infrastructure. FPOs plus RESCO-led models can scale these interventions in these farm-based lands. Next, water requirement. This is projected to be more or less similar under both scenarios. One may ask like why it is higher in net zero scenario. The emerging technologies such as green hydrogen consume higher water, around 32 liters per kilograms. Critical minerals such as lithium requires around 5 lakh gallons of water. To manage this, we need to recognize energy production in current water allocation policies of state and municipal corporations to manage. We are already the water-stressed country and this signifies the need to manage this water demand well for this transition. And the employment aspect of the transition, which is critical for this transition, there are two dimensions. One is the spatial scale. Around 150 out of 800 districts are directly or indirectly exposed to fossil-linked supply chains. If we talk about extent, around 17 million plus people are employed to fossil fuel-linked manufacturing industries. Our analysis suggests there is an opportunity of 1 million additional jobs due to this transition. However, skills and geography mismatches exist between declining and emerging technologies, which needs to be managed well through sector-specific skilling and reskilling guidelines. And finally, the behavioral change. Yesterday, CEO sir highlighted 5 drivers of the transition, and one of which was the demand management. And none other than human behavior can manage this demand well through choices like public transport, procurement of efficient appliances. This may appear small, but imagine multiplying this with 1.5 billion people in India, which have the power to bend this curve significantly. Analysis suggests that 55 to 60 gigajoule of energy is required to meet the developmental needs, well below the current world average and much below the today's developed economies. This highlights the India's development model could be a unique one, which can be a model for Global South, as you sir highlighted yesterday as well. There are few behavioral inertia as well, like there are established habits, unclear information for consumers to change their choices. And to address this, we already have a Mission Live wonderful tool. We just need to create innovative tools within this, like emerging digital product passport to nudge human consumer to procure or to adopt sustainable choices. Finally, I'd just like to say it is just not just a mitigation or net zero transition lever, but also how we envision Viksit Bharat that resonates with India's civilizational ethos, wherein the respect for nature, frugality, and intergenerational generational responsibilities have long shaped the choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nitin Bajpayee, for your presentation. And now I would request all our dignitaries to kindly release our study reports of NITI Aayog. And I would request Rajnath Ram sir to kindly join us for the release. Please, sir. So dignitaries on the dais will first release our first report, Scenario Towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, Sectoral Insights Buildings. So this is our first report in this session. Ji, sir. It's Scenario Towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, Sectoral Insights Building. So after buildings, we have a report on agriculture, that is Scenario Towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, Sectoral Insights Agriculture. Third study report of NITI Aayog is Scenarios Towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, Sectoral Insights Waste. And fourth report of this session and the last report of our entire event is Scenario Towards Viksit Bharat and Net Zero, Social Implications of Transition. We thank all our dignitaries and now member NITI Aayog. Thank you, Rajnath Ram sir. Member NITI Aayog, Dr. Ramesh Chanji, he is a leading agriculture economist with extensive experience in policy, research on agriculture, food systems, and food security. He has served on national and international policy bodies. He has also authored several books. So I request Dr. Ramesh Chanji. Please, sir.
Thank you, CEO NITI Aayog, Shri BVR Subramaniam ji. Program Director for Energy and Environment Vertical, Anshu Bhardwaj ji, Mr. Motkur, and the team which prepared these reports, and distinguished participants. As you will be expecting, I will stick my comment to a report on agriculture sector. I have been saying this thing earlier also, that the relationship between climate change and agriculture is unique and different than what is the relationship between agriculture and other economic sectors. And that uniqueness is very important for preparing any strategy, how we deal with emissions in agriculture. The first and foremost reason which differentiate agriculture from other economic activity for emission is the two-way relationship between agriculture and climate change. DG ICR very ably summarized it just in 3 words, that agriculture is both sink and source. So agriculture not only causes emissions, it is also affected by emissions. In fact, if climate change go to extreme, agriculture will be badly affected. We may get much less food. So all those kind of things. So if there is a change in climate, increase in temperature, it may not affect production of car. It may not affect production of so many other things. But it will definitely affect in a very serious way production of agri-food. So this is, I think, one, and which has several implications. Then second is that emission from agriculture are invisible, whereas emission from other activities, they are seen. If there is a factory, you just find that smoke is going out of chimney. Everybody sees it. If there is a truck going, so you see that emission is happening. But emission from agriculture, particularly whether it is bovine, whether it is a rice field, emission will happen 24 hours. But it is invisible. It is not seen. And you know, anything which is not visible, people do not perceive that easily. The solution of that thing is not as easy. So visible enemy is easy to deal with than invisible enemy. So that is, I think, another important peculiarity of agriculture is its visibility. And as I just mentioned, that agriculture is also one sector, because it is a biological activity, which also offers solution, whereas car production will not offer solution for emissions. So I think we should view impact on agriculture, keeping this thing in mind. And because of this, as again DGICR just said, that we should not speak only of mitigation, we should also speak about, we should not speak only about adaptation, we should also be speaking about mitigation. I feel it is much more important when it comes to agriculture, because we say that no, we will not talk about mitigation because we cannot touch food. But we forget that if we do not talk about mitigation, it is this food production which will be very, very severely affected in future. So I think for same reason, because of which we feel that agriculture has a sensitivity to talk about mitigation, I think because of same reason that if we don't talk about mitigation, we can secure our food security, but we can really endanger food security of our children and grandchildren. Then, as CO Saab rightly said, that two major source of emission. One is enteric fermentation by bovine, livestock, some categories of livestock, not all. And second is paddy. Of course, others are also there, land usage, fertilizer, energy, but these are the two main. So I first come to one which is not to my mind tractable, that is enteric fermentation, that though we talk of solutions like you give different kind of diet to cows and buffalo, so that there is less gas emissions. But those are not easy things to do. And even in Europe, where they have this commitment to reduce emissions, the only effective measure they are using is to reduce number of cattle. There are agitation by farmer in many European countries. In Netherlands, they even changed the government. That why you are asking us to reduce number of dairy animal, this is our livelihood, all those kind of things. But I think this is a hard fact that half of the emission in agriculture comes from livestock, and there addressing emission is not easy. Therefore, the onus on dealing with emission will come to crop sectors, mainly rice, that let us do hard way, how we can just see to it, reduce at least emission intensity in crop production or in rice cultivations. Then also this regarding this share of agriculture, that many people have perception that agriculture is green growth, but the number suggests that agriculture contribution to greenhouse gas, in this report also that number is quoted, 14%. To be precise, the number I saw was 13.4%. And that doesn't include fishery, that doesn't include forestry. So it is from crop and livestock. And share of crop and livestock in the national income or gross value added is also only 14.5% or so. Therefore, anything that we do in agriculture is as environment damaging as anything that we do non-agriculture. So agriculture, we can't put on higher pedestal that no, agriculture doesn't do those kind of damages. So this is another thing that many a time we do not deal with the sector for averting certain unwanted consequences because we are dealing with it with wrong perception or inadequate understanding that agriculture is a green growth, it doesn't affect those kind of things. It is equally culprit for whatever is happening because of emission. We need to keep that in mind. So I think what is important is that what we can do in crops, what we can do in at least think about livestock. The solution may not be visible immediately, but we can't stop looking for solution. You never know that certain things which are considered impossible at one point of time, science just changed it. At one time, cancer was considered incurable, but now you find 60-70% of cancer is treatable. So first I come to crop sector that what we can do. I think if we increase productivity and if we increase resource use efficiency, these are the two ways that by using less amount of resources, by causing less emissions, we can at least reduce the severity of the problem. And this is precisely what is happening in case of agriculture, that if you look at the emission intensity in agriculture, it is declining at a very fast rate. That growth rate of agriculture last, if you take even 20 years, it is around, say, 3.5%. But if you look at increase in emission, it is very, very less. So as a result, you just find that first positive step or first positive development is happening in agriculture, that emission intensity, which is one of the 3 NDC goals, that is already declining in a big way in case of agriculture. We have so many options that through resource use efficiency, through waste to wealth, etc. But I would say, given the time to me, that to me, the strategy should focus on 3 Ps with the help of 4th P, which is policies and technology. So let me elaborate what I mean by 3 Ps. The first P is the product mix, that what we produce, that affects what will be emissions. So if you produce more rice, of course there will be more emission. But if you replace rice with maize, there will be reduction in emission. If further you replace maize with some other crop, pulses, you will find that emission will be still much, much less. I think these are the options available to India, that how we can think of trade-off between economic gain and ecological gains. India right now is producing 30% more rice than what is needed for food security, than what is the demand. So if we just want to produce as much rice as is needed for food security, then we can focus on first P, that we bring other products in place of rice, and you just find that 30% reduction will reduce total emission from agriculture by 14% or so, given the share of rice. So this is the option, but we want to earn more income, all those things. So that's why I would say that situation is not that desperate that no option exists. So at some stage, when Indian will realize that better environment is more important than better return. So you just find some change in P, that product mix we are changing, and that can make difference of 14%, which is huge. Then second P is practices, that the emission also depend upon how we grow rice. Whether it is direct seeded rice, whether it is alternate bedding and drying, or whether we are going toward aerobic rice. I will talk about it when I talk about technology, that those kind of things are also appearing on the horizon, that we can do those kind of things. The third P is that of place. Growing rice in arid region by creating artificial water pond create much more emission compared to growing paddy where water is already standing, like lowland rice in eastern India. So because water is standing there, you already have some emission. It's not that emission is not there, but if you grow rice there is, I think, hardly any extra emissions. So, but you grow at one place is another very important choice, that by choosing crops according to agroclimatic regional characteristics. In fact, at one time there used to be APRU in Planning Commission, Agroclimatic Planning Regional ARPU, Agroclimatic Regional Planning Units, which used to have strong say in terms of incentive to be given to different crops so that their regional specificity and advantages are maintained. But subsequently, I think that has gone, but that also offers some hopes. But to make appropriate use of these three Ps, we require right set of policies, and I think technology also can make big difference. So policy is known to everyone. This report also adequately present what kind of policy option, diversification, and other things. I would just like to briefly share with you what solution I see in technology. So we are talking about livestock. We have two types of bovine, buffalo and cows. And you know that since long, male calf of buffalo was never preferred. But male calf of cow was earlier preferred as a bullock. But now that preference is also gone. But there is a technology that you can choose through sex sorted semen, the choice whether you will get a heifer or you will get a calf. And already I visited one farm where he was practicing it. Just I wanted to see whether on ground it is happening or not. So I think this is what has potential to considerably reduce the rate of growth of livestock. We need to encourage this kind of technologies. Other than that, I don't see much hope in reducing emission in case of bovine. But in case of agriculture, I find that lot of hope is visible. Like there is a advanced science to develop varieties of wheat which can fix atmospheric nitrogen. Like pulses, we have atmospheric nitrogen. Therefore, we need to apply much less fertilizer to pulses, especially nitrogen fertilizer, which is causing emission. P and K are not that damaging. So if there is a success that we are able to develop varieties of wheat which fixes atmospheric nitrogen, so you reduce use of fertilizer, and which to some extent whatever emission is caused by nitrate, nitrogenous fertilizer, so you are able to address that. Similarly, I am told by some people working in rice system that now they are using some of the varieties which were popular in South America, where rice is grown under aerobic condition, not understanding water. Rice is grown like a beet field. So once you do that, then you just find that make very big difference to emission from cultivation of paddy. So that is the, I would say, another kind of technologies. And I feel that these are not only, these are not hypothetical technologies. And if we get some success, and if we start funding the research for this kind of technology which can address emissions, that is need of the hours, that we need to create a special R&D window for coming with these kind of things, because the solution which they can create is much worth billions. If you spend lakhs, the return which you get is worth billions. So that is, I think, another kind of things. And only one thing which occurred to me, that measurement is also very, very important in these kind of things, right kind of concepts. So that is the advantage to NITI. That's why I always, not that I'm working in NITI, I always prefer to quote NITI source, not in my area, even in other area compared to other sources, because these reports are prepared by domain experts in vertical, domain expertise at member level. It is properly filtered. I just saw one report from very responsible researcher and institute, which showed, I brought a copy, a print of that, which just showed that emission from rice, methane emission from rice is much higher in Bihar than in Punjab. I was struck by it, that how come it is possible. Then what I could find is that, okay, overall emission may be higher, but in Bihar, since because of standing water, emission is there even if water is not there. So this should have been compared in a different way. That component should have been taken into consideration. So sometimes you bring with this kind of misleading things also, that the conclusion will be, if methane emission in rice is more in Bihar than in Punjab, then better you grow rice in Punjab rather than encouraging rice cultivation in Bihar. I brought a printout if there is some person who doubt what I am saying, so you can see that. Then just to my colleague for building, I was talking to our CEO also, that we are showing India that India AC requirement is very, very high, therefore we will be, but our heating requirement is very, very low. See, we require AC for summer, but other people require AC for winter. And to me it seems that if you add that requirement for heating, then the total situation, the ranking of country may totally change. So how you then put your situation globally, that can make difference. Just to give that we need to use proper kind of indicators so that we are able to arrive at right kind of strategies. So before stopping my speech, I would once again like to congratulate the entire team within NITI, and also we took help of CEEW, and also large number of research institute within ICR and other places to get their input. After all, when you are talking about future, you cannot say anything with certainty. Even model may not give you, I think, very accurate kind of pictures. So, but is the best bet is the judgment of experts. So we consulted a lot of people. We took their judgment, how a rice scientist look at future of rice, how livestock people from NDRI look at dairy, all those things. And also we got our demand supply projection. I think one of the author is there, Shvendra Srivastava. So they estimated all those things for us. We only used those things for preparing the projection. And I hope that whatever the suggestion and recommendation of these reports, they will be helpful for the country in addressing the emerging challenge of emission. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we have got a virtual message from Dr. V.K. Paul, member NITI Aayog. So let's watch it.
Namaskaram. I'm delighted to be a part of this event for the release of two seminal reports under NITI Aayog's initiative on pathways to net zero. India's Viksit Bharat ambition and the aspiration to achieve net zero by 2070 present challenges as well as opportunities. The building sector report provides a comprehensive vision across the entire ecosystem for buildings, from design to materials, to reduce, rationalize, and optimize energy use. The report notes that a large share of the floor space that will be required for Viksit Bharat at 2047 is yet to be built in the next 2 decades, offering a critical imperative to design and construct sustainably from the outset. The impacts of climate change are already visible in rising cooling requirements and rapidly growing air conditioner sales. The report highlights the importance of approaches such as green and sustainable building envelopes, along with programs like the standards and labeling of appliances to contain future energy demand without compromising thermal comfort. It is expected that the report would serve as a guiding document for the future building sector roadmap. The second report on social implications in the context of net zero delves into land and water resources requirement, employment changes, health systems, and individual and community behavior. While the aggregate requirements for land and water appear manageable, these demands have to be examined in the context of competing uses and socio-spatial dimensions. Climate change compounds these challenges, with 40% of our districts facing high climate risk and impending implications for human health. Against these challenges, the report on social implications of transition provides a comprehensive vision regarding the need for robust social protection systems, land-neutral technological solutions, climate-ready health infrastructure, and targeted behavioral intervention anchored in a mission life. Path to net zero is fundamental path to a more just, resilient, and prosperous India for our present and future generations. I would like to congratulate the NITI Aayog team led by Dr. Bharat and our very esteemed knowledge partners, namely the Alliance for Energy, Efficiency and Economy, Council on Energy, Environment and Water, International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology, World Resources Institute, the World Health Organization, and the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation for their invaluable contributions in shaping up these very important reports. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. V.K. Paul, sir, for your remarks. And now may I request Dr. Anshu Bharat, Program Director, NITI Aayog, for a word of thanks. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. The term hard to abate sectors is generally reserved for sectors like cement and steel and other industries where it is difficult to capture carbon. But as we were working on these reports, I realized that that is nothing as compared to the hardness of abatement in these sectors. For two reasons. One is we have a large number of dispersed actors in buildings. We're looking at millions and crores of potential home buyers. And then number two, the aspect of human behavior is an integral part of how, whether we are able to mitigate or not. So in that sense, these reports are actually difficult and much harder than the other reports that we handled in the earlier sections. So my sincere thanks goes to all the working group chair who coordinated these sectors, Professor Ramesh Chand for leading the agriculture working group, Dr. V.K. Paul for the buildings and the social aspects of climate change, Mr. Rajnath Ram, our advisor energy, for the waste sector report, and also my sincere thanks to all the knowledge partners who worked on these reports, AEEE, CEW, ICLAI, WRI, iForest, WHO, and MSSRF. I also thank our CEO for his context setting and for giving the overall big picture. Thanks a lot to all who participated in this session among the audience. It's not generally at the end of the day and the end of a workshop, the audience diminishes. It's heartening to see a large number of people who are here, which shows the interest in the subject. Just wanted to reiterate one more thing, that because this is the last session, the 11 reports that we have released are all on NITI's website. You can, the way that we have structured them is that the first report is the overall synthesis report, which gives an overview of all the scenarios, all the analysis. The next 10 reports are a deeper dive into any one particular topic. So if you are interested in climate finance, you can go to the particular report on climate finance. There will be a short summary of that in the report number 1 as well. If you are more interested in power, you can read power sector report, but there will be a short summary of power report in the report 1 as well, and so on and so forth. So that's how we have structured it, and they will all be available on the website. If you would like physical copies, just send us a message. We'll make sure you get access to them. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Anshu Bharat, for a word of thanks. And with this, we thank all our esteemed guests. G. Sir, please. Okay. आपको चेयर्स तो 5 ही हैं, बस नेम प्लेट चेंज करना है ना, नेम प्लेट कप आने में सब कुछ। ओके, ठीक है। So we thank all our dignitaries, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the panel discussion, climate transition and social implications across sectors. And for this, panel discussion, may I request our esteemed panelists to kindly join us on the dais. Shri Ashish Kumar Singh Ji, Chief Mentor, Lodha Foundation. Shrimati Uma Mahadevan, Development Commissioner, Government of Karnataka. Shri Ajay Kumar Rastogi Ji, Chairman, Task Force on Sustainable Transition, Government of Jharkhand. Dr. Shahidur Rashid, Director, South Asia International Food Policy Research Institute. And moderator of this panel discussion, Shri Madhav Pai Ji, CEO, World Resource Institute, India. We welcome all our panelists on the dais. And to begin with, our first panelist, Shri Ashish Kumar Singh Ji, Chief Mentor at the Lodha Foundation, is a former IS officer of the Maharashtra cadre, 1988 batch. He held senior positions, including Additional Chief Secretary to the Government of Maharashtra. He is known for driving governance reforms and institutional transformation across key infrastructure and urban sectors. I now invite Ms. Radhika Talekar, young professional from NITI Aayog, to kindly come onto the dais and felicitate Shri Ashish Kumar Singh Ji by presenting a sapling to him. Our next panelist is Ms. Uma Mahadevan Ji, Additional Chief Secretary and Development Commissioner, Government of Karnataka. Ma'am is IS Officer of Karnataka cadre, 1992 batch. She has held senior roles across key social and economic sectors at the state and central levels and contributed to Karnataka's first Human Development Report. I now invite Ms. Astha Singh, young professional from NITI Aayog, to kindly come and present a sapling to Ms. Uma Mahadevan Ji, our panelist. Our next panelist is Shri Ajay Kumar Rastogi Ji, Chairman, Task Force on Sustainable Just Transition and Green Hydrogen, Government of Jharkhand. He's leading the state's effort towards equitable low-carbon transition. A seasoned civil servant, he has over 3 decades of experience, including service as Principal Chief Conservator of Forest in Jharkhand and Bihar. I now invite Dr. Priyanka Sarkar, Consultant NITI Aayog, to kindly come and felicitate Shri Ajay Kumar Rastogi Ji by presenting a sapling to him. So Ms. Geeta Kapoor Ji, Poonam Kapoor Ji, yeah, Research Officer, is now presenting a sapling. We have Dr. Shahidur Rashid Ji, Director for the South Asia Office at the International Food Policy Research Institute, with over 2 decades of experience in agriculture, food and development policy across South Asia and Africa. And now I request, again, Ms. Poonam Ji? Okay. Ms. Poonam Kapoor, Research Officer, NITI Aayog, to kindly come again and present a sapling to Dr. Shahidur Rashid Ji and welcome him. Moderator of this panel discussion is Shri Madhav Pai Ji, CEO, WRI India. Sorry? Okay, sure, Ji. A leading thinker, practitioner on urbanization, climate change, transport and environment policy. He has played a key role in shaping landmark initiatives like the Mumbai Climate Action Plan, the National Electric Bus Program, and Rahagiri. I now request Ms. Radhika Talekar, young professional from NITI Aayog, to kindly come and felicitate Shri Madhav Pai Ji, moderator of this session. So it's over to Shri Madhav Pai Ji, CEO WRI India.
Welcome everyone to this afternoon session on social implications of the transition. After concurring with the fellow panelists, we've decided we'll speak from here and not go to the dais. So just a bit of a change so that we keep the conversation going. I think as the CEO NITI Aayog mentioned, I think the previous conversations which were so focused on the technical and the financial architecture of the transition, this conversation is centered around the resources, land and water, and also its social implications, right? This conversation is also for us to shift the focus very, very intentionally from metrics, carbon metrics, to that of lives and livelihoods of the people. And really, I mean, I think to a large extent, this panel is based on the principle that India's development is actually the best form of adaptation that we can do. As the CA has also noted that adaptation must come first. And, we cannot reach our mitigation goals if the climate hazards and the vulnerabilities really, reverse the hard-fought wins that we have achieved. So, as we saw, I mean, also land requirements have grown, will grow as we think about the transition. Water requirements, although look same, I think if you start to think about or look at these things more spatially, I think we realize that, there is a big movement of where the problems or where the challenges are. Also, I think the spatial map of the districts where the fossil fuel economy was focused, I think is very good. I think bringing this spatial aspect becomes extremely crucial. I think with that also I'll say that there are, if you start to think about it and, as we go down, to specific, whether it's at the district level or the city level or state level, where a lot of these transitions will actually happen. I think I'll give 2 or 3 examples, some of which from our work. When we were working in Mumbai on the climate action plan, one of the things when we started to baseline the heat data, we saw that informal settlements were 6 to 8 degrees hotter than the neighboring sort of more formal settlements. So Dharavi was 6 to 8 degrees hotter than the neighboring Matunga. And I think this is where I think some of these social implications of the transition become real. I think, and how we then, develop much more nuanced responses becomes extremely important, because we can't then use a one-size-fits-all. So that is a spatial conversation. The other very interesting comment that had come, we were doing a consultation, and somebody had said that, talking from a informal settlement that is along a Nala in Juhu, which is opposite from Amitabh Bachchan's house. And they said that, the infrastructure, may be the same, but how people experience it from different social categories of society is very different. And so I think the people in this informal settlement will experience and deal with the losses, the implications on their livelihoods very differently from Amitabh Bachchan, right? So I think so this really highlights sort of the extent also of within a space, particular geography, the sort of extent of some of these challenges. So just to highlight some of these examples, I think we have a lot of people who are experts, who have contributed in their states. I think it will be great to hear from them. I think the one other reality also I think that has to be dealt with is that I think as we move away from fossil fuels, I think the traditional tax revenues of the states will decline. And a lot of this is actually what covers for, I think, the fiscal space that is then used to run welfare programs and other things. I think so how to deal with this shrinking fiscal space, and whether this becomes an opportunity for private sector investment and involvement of CSR and other philanthropy partners, and how can we make this also possible. So with that, I think a lot of, on the opportunity side, of course, there's lots of opportunities. I mean, there was already conversations on green skilling, on circularity, on green skilling around new technologies. I do think that also huge opportunity to create maybe what I would like to call green livelihoods. Also, this is, really around protecting water bodies, protecting rivers. Can we create almost a gig economy around some of these ideas? How do we get more people involved? And how do we also then bring some of these sort of sources of revenue from CSR, from philanthropy, etc., or from private sector investment to actually drive this thing? Because this will also help then overall drive the adaptation agenda. So, with some of these sort of broad thoughts, I think clearly state level action, missions like the Swachh Bharat mission, Life mission, and large skilling and other programs, I think a holistic approach is required to also address this. So again, I want to congratulate the leadership team at NITI Aayog and also the team to do these reports. And finally, I think thank you to NITI Aayog also for allowing organizations like ours to provide a platform to help and contribute. So with that, I will now ask Ms. Uma Mahadevan. This report emphasizes a lot that informal workers are not just victims of climate hazard, but potential agents of change. You as in leadership of the Panchayati Raj and Skill Development Program, really how can we leverage, at the state level also and build these kind of programs that can both drive sort of skilling entrepreneurship, but also climate proof them and help the vulnerable populations of our states. Good, ma'am.
Thank you, Shri Madhav Bhai. And first of all, my congratulations to NITI Aayog under the leadership of CEO Mr. Subramaniam and the working group that has developed these reports, Dr. Anshu Bharadwaj and the team, as well as all the other organizations, the World Resources Institute, MSSRF, multiple organizations who have come together under this umbrella. Congratulations to NITI for making such a huge and worthwhile project happen on the ground. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. Thank you, first of all, for having a focus, along with the focus on other things, having a focus on the social implications, because that often does not get attention, and it's important, and it's also very, very commendable that the report has a very strong section on this. Our understanding of what economic growth is and what a developed society is must include not only strong infrastructure and progress across industry and manufacturing and so on, but also quality of life, the kind of inclusive growth that we're seeing, and progress across health, education, which require also skills and aspects of equity and inclusion. And therefore, taking a very strong approach at the outset itself that we will look at economic growth alongside the transition to net zero emission is something which is very, very commendable. So thank you for that. Thank you also for recognizing the social implications related to land, water, and of course how these will reflect on livelihoods, on health, on social behavior, and on equity across specific groups, marginalized groups, and for recognizing the need for enhanced measures for adaptation and resilience and mitigation. Just looking at land, for example, the report recognizes that in India, there's an average of only 0.11 hectares of arable land per person, as against the global average of 0.172 hectares. Land degradation also is by any measure around 30% of India's geographical area is under conditions of degradation. On water stress, projections indicate, as the report says, that the annual per capita water availability will actually drop from 1486 cubic meters in 2021 to 1367 cubic meters by 2031, which is already far less than the category that's defined as water stressed, which is 1700 cubic meters availability per person. We know that in the years to come, land and water requirements of development in general, of urbanization, of infrastructure, of housing, and of course of agriculture will only increase. And renewables will also put pressure on the requirement of land and water. The report recognizes that the land requirement for clean energy deployment is manageable. It, however, also notes that wasteland estimates will make up a substantial portion of available wastelands, and hence the use of wastelands for clean energy transition will require very strong and rigorous safeguards. And again, this is appreciable that the report takes this into consideration and notes that these safeguards are required to mitigate both socioeconomic and ecological impacts. It's also commendable that the report notes renewable energy expansion in areas where hydrological stress and hydrological constraints mean that a careful watch has to be kept on managing groundwater use, because we already have groundwater overexploitation affecting more than 25% of administrative units in several states, both in the critical and in the overexploited category. We note from the report that grid expansion will add to the land footprint, and battery storage will depend greatly on minerals whose extraction is water intensive, minerals such as lithium and so on. It's also appreciable that while the report recognizes these risks, it also suggests guardrails such as, for example, stronger spatial planning for renewable energy deployment, including the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool, the IBAT, and the Avian Sensitivity Tool for Energy Planning, the AV STEP, to identify and avoid ecologically sensitive habitats. This is one of the sections of the report that was very close to my heart, so congratulations for that. Safeguards are mentioned for water governance too, which are increasingly important, and states have taken cognizance of this. One of my jobs as Development Commissioner is actually to take a report of water use and groundwater exploitation in the state. However, it's also important to recognize that there will be an impact on employment and on migration. We do have a demographic dividend of a young working age population, and we should find ways to leverage this young working age population for this transition. We have 370 million people aged 18 to 29, that's 27% of the population. India does produce 2 million STEM graduates per year. We are the world's third largest startup ecosystem. But it's important to note that only 5 or 7% of the working age population currently receive formal vocational or technical training. We do have our industrial training institutes, a network across the country. We need to think strongly about states like Karnataka have government tool room and training centers. We have technical training institutions which do short-term and long-term training. There's an ecosystem which has built around vocational training. However, we recognize in Karnataka that we have miles to go in making skills transferable, and also in keeping the kind of skill training that we give nimble enough to adapt to the ever-evolving, changing needs of industry as we go along. We also recognize that Karnataka, like other states in India, has a high degree of labor market informality, and the low-carbon transition will have implications, particularly for livelihoods. I'll take the example, as I walked into this hall, there was a gentleman presenting on solid waste management. I'll take the example of what solid waste management practices we have taken up in rural Karnataka. Online similar to Kerala as well. Livelihoods can be created, and Karnataka has shown that livelihoods, green livelihoods as you talked about, can be created at the local body level, in rural Karnataka as well, in the village panchayat level, around nearly 6,000 panchayats in Karnataka, and not on a wage employment model, but on a micro-enterprise model where women-led, women-owned and women-run solid waste management micro-enterprises do end-to-end solid waste management, starting from behavior change communication, door-to-door collection, secondary segregation, selling and disposal of the waste, segregated waste, to aggregators, recycling, upcycling, and end-to-end management of solid waste. This can be done for textile waste, C&D waste, and other categories of solid waste. And therefore, transition need not be painful as it otherwise would be. If we embed concerns of gender, of disability, of accessibility, of concerns for the elderly, concerns for other marginalized groups into the entire process. And I'm particularly happy that the report also talks about health vulnerabilities, about heat, air pollution, and extreme weather events. The last point I'd like to make is that we saw during the COVID pandemic that local bodies, decentralization and local governance is a strong way to promote convergent action while a lot of the safeguards and standardized methods, response systems can be developed across the state and across the country, we need local action in order to translate policy into actual impact on the ground. And therefore, this transition should be accompanied by strong decentralization and local governance and a very thoughtful process of action on the ground. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I now request Dr. Rashid to give his brief remarks. And maybe you could also, I think, reflect a little bit on maybe how some of these ideas of climate smart practices, etc., can be made, viable for some of the smallholder farmers or other things. Yeah, but over to you, sir. Please, absolutely.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's late afternoon, not easy to be alert at this time, but it's a really huge event in my mind. Thank you, NITI Aayog, for inviting IPRI. Personally, I'm really honored and humbled. I'm excited also at the same time, very excited, because what these reports tell you is that it was a really ambitious undertaking. I hear that over 300 professionals work on it from different disciplines, from engineering to hydrologist to agriculturist to all different kind of people. So my hats off to NITI Aayog. And then when I looked up the coordinator of it, project director, I see that he went to IIT, he went to IIM, he went to he went to IIM and he became IIS and he did a PhD from very famous technology university in the US. So for him it was possible. Excited because the whole thing is extremely ambitious. It is ambitious, it's aspirational, but if I can borrow a word from Barack Obama, but that is the audacity of hope, because you have to have it. Think about it. When in the 60s, we are talking about agriculture and food security, we only thought about growing enough crop to feed the hungry people. That was a very different set of challenge than the challenge that we are facing today. So climate challenge, net zero, taking it explicitly and figuring out how to address strategically over time is a huge aspirational task. And I congratulate NITI for that. So what I will do here, I will first try to clarify that I don't work, this is not my subject matter, but I have some very brilliant colleagues here as well as in Washington working on resource management and climate change. One of them is here, Dr. Vartika Singh. She just finished her PhD on exact similar topic. So he gave me a few slides for 5 minutes. So that's what I'll be reflecting on. So first point I'd like to reflect on is about the conceptual framework and some technicalities. IPRI is a very technical organization in some sense. IPRI hosts the highest number of economic and public policy models among the CGIAR institutions. And they can address from the global CGE to regional CGE model to even subnational level modeling exercises. So when we think about then climate change or net zero, we don't think only about agriculture. We think in a food system approach. We take the food system approach, meaning what happens at the production level, yes, has implication, but the way it is distributed also has implication of the greenhouse gas emission. And also, when the consumption happens, at the consumption level, it has implication, as well as at the disposal level, waste level, there is also implication for greenhouse gas emission. So this is the whole system working together. Unless we take the system as a whole, we miss out parts of it. So what I recommend at that point is in the subsequent iteration maybe, some of those subnational level model can be taken into consideration to tease out some of the implications of the transition from current state to moving to a newer state with net zero. So the other issue that we would like to emphasize is we are also working as a human side of it. All social protection programs that we do at IPRI, social protection has implications for protecting the losers of the policy intervention. When we transition, that transition will have social welfare implications. If there are losers, we have to address them so that they are not badly hurt. At the end, all the action policies, what matters is the human being. Behind all of these numbers and charts, there are people. How do we ensure their well-being given all the policy actions we are proposing here? Whether it's agriculture, it is livestock sector, it is other sector. So that is one issue. Now, in that area, IPRI has been doing some research. One of them is that if you think about the diet itself, if you move from just unhealthy diet to healthy diet, that has immediate implication for reducing greenhouse gas emission. So what does that mean? That means that behavior change is going to be critically important in all aspects of this greenhouse gas emission spectrum. It is important because if we are trying to develop a system to have that idea in mind that whole food system has to be healthy so that our young population growing up today will be healthy population than productive labor force contributing to the country. It will be very different scenario at that time. Mr. CEO was pointing out this morning that the person who will be there is born today, and it has to be healthy. It has to be productive force at that time to buy those new houses, to do the agriculture differently, precision agriculture or whatever. So that's going to be extremely important. Last point I would like to make is we should possibly think, I would like to submit to the NITI, that how do we account for some of these agriculture sector related issues more comprehensive ways. I know NITI has spent a lot of time teasing out the macroeconomic implications, but there hasn't been a sector level, agriculture sector level model application. But agriculture sector level model applications are available and can be used, and IPRI would be happy to help in that regard. The second thing is net zero, yes, that target is there, but the climate change as a whole does not limit within the border of a country. It goes beyond. What we are paying today, the price that we are paying today, is not because of our own fault. It was because the Western country, advanced countries, what they did, we are suffering from the consequences of that. So now when we talk about Viksit Bharat, we reached that $30 trillion in 1947. We do that in a very different way than the way West did 50 years ago, 100 years ago. It's very different. They did not have to worry about the net zero. They did not have to worry about the climate change. But we have to. So that is a very different challenge than just growing and developing, looking at the growth number. We have to go far beyond the growth number. And many of those issues actually can be teased out. So teased out with models that are available in many cases. So let me offer one in the future conversation. We can organize a kind of a small group into discussion where we can bring our modeling expert on agriculture at the subnational level and discuss how they can contribute to this moving forward. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid. Now I'll request Mr. Ashish Kumar Singh. You worked very closely, I know, on the EV policy of Maharashtra. He's held many positions as in leadership positions in the state government in Maharashtra. But I think really that, when this kind of transition happens, state revenues also get impacted. A lot of times this state revenue is what actually pay for some of these social programs, etc. So, what are the implications of it? Can you reflect on it a little bit? And also maybe, talk about how we can better sort of climate-proof these systems here.
At the outset, let me thank you, Madhav, for kind of bringing the transportation angle into focus. But I also wanted to kind of link the scenarios bit with the net zero bit and the urbanization bit. As I've been working, I also worked with the Bombay Municipal Corporation. And I must say that if we continue to project the scenarios in terms of business as usual, then many cities in India are going to really go through some extremely torrid times. Urban heat is going to go up significantly. So is the challenge of dealing with solid waste. And similarly, we'll have to have serious challenges on water as well. And along with all this, we have challenges of dealing with energy transition and dealing with issues of transportation. Because as we electrify more and more of our transportation in the urban areas, this energy transition also becomes equally significant. So initially, let me just kind of project the scenario of what would happen to, say, urban heat in existing cities, and my example would be mostly from Mumbai, because that's the city that I come from. If you look at all the slum redevelopment which is happening in Mumbai, they're all becoming vertical in many ways. So one of the easiest things that we tend to do in urban planning is to immediately increase the floor space index and say that, this is the way we can solve the housing problem. But unfortunately, we don't deal with water, we don't deal with wastewater, and we don't deal with sewage. Because those are things which need to be kind of built into these cities in a retrofitted way. The same problem also extends to solid waste, because as you start increasing the density of population, the solid waste getting collected becomes so much more larger, and you need bigger landfills to now deal with it. Or you need to have methodologies to recycle them. Now, typically, I would suggest that maybe NITI Aayog should consider giving significant tax breaks to people who are intending to invest in recycling facilities within 100 kilometers of large cities. So that people, when they are made to segregate waste, the segregated waste does not go into the landfill and gets aggregated again. Instead, gets actually recycled because of the fact that these recycling facilities are closer to the cities. And this can only happen if there are tax breaks, because otherwise it doesn't really have so much money in it. So here again, we need to see as to what's happening to producers, what's happening to consumers, and what's happening to financiers. And we have to allocate those risks which each one of them can take based on what is their capability and based on who it should actually rest with. Coming back to urban heat, my own guess is that we are heating up by more than 2 degrees in most of the cities. And this is happening because there is a lot of embedded heat in these buildings. And when I say that, what I mean is that 66% of steel, India steel, goes into the built environment, of which 40% is coming from the rebars, which means electric furnaces. And this steel is the one which is the first instance of heat getting embedded into the building. That's followed by cement, and then it is followed by the design of the buildings that we do. When we do designs of buildings like we are doing in the slum redevelopment projects of Mumbai, the density becomes so high that anyway the flow of air itself gets impacted. And so the urban heat challenge that we are going to see in the years to come is going to be a lot more significant. And unless we come in with LC3 kind of stuff, with steel which has lower carbon embedded in it, and with concrete which is a lot lesser in terms of its embedded carbon, this urban heat challenge won't be easy to address. Now, insofar as finances of the states are concerned, in fact, the finances would not get so badly impacted because there will be other methods of perhaps generation of tax, which would mean people falling sick, actually going to hospitals, and therefore some tax coming out of the GST, which we collect from the pharma industries, and so on. But that's not a very good way of looking at economic growth, and it's also not a great way of generating a lot of revenue. But if we don't address these things, then that will be one of the major sources of revenue. Pharma would be a big source of revenue, as Maharashtra is actually very pharma, is a state where pharma dominates in terms of investments. So far as transportation is concerned, I think for India there is no option but to electrify it, because we are not a petro state, so we need to become electro state. And if we need to become an electro state, one, we need to actually generate more electricity, but at the same time also have the ability to absorb most of the generation that we intend to do. And this electric vehicle ecosystem will also be only beneficial if we are able to plan our cities in such a way that they are only used when they are necessary to be used. So that we create newer towns and newer cities where we have a lot of walk to work opportunity, a lot of cycling opportunity, and a lot of pedestrian capability, which unfortunately in the existing cities does not exist. Not only that, the general success that we see typically in a political economy is a wide road rather than a wide pavement on which people can walk safely. So until unless we kind of change our development control rules to build these pathways as an integral part of our urban planning, maybe we will not be able to deal with the challenges of transportation as well. So these are some of the issues that I think would have been addressed in the report. I haven't actually gone through the report. I've heard some speeches here, but maybe after that we could perhaps discuss this a little more.
Thank you very much. I think we'll take some questions also from the audience. So now I'll come to Mr. Rastogi. Mr. Rastogi, you work in an economy that is deeply tied to fossil fuel, and it is as much a conversation about land as it is about social equity. And you've been leading the task force in Jharkhand about balancing the push for green hydrogen, some of these new energy resources. At the same time, this whole practical need for protecting land and livelihoods, land rights and livelihoods for the population. So really, if you can, I think from your perspective, share what you're doing and also reflect on the report that has been put together.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I am the last speaker in this session. First of all, thank you very much. Thank you, CEO NITI Aayog, Mr. Anshu, for inviting me from Jharkhand. I've been hearing a lot, what is happening in energy domain and what is happening in technology. I will speak about, specifically about Jharkhand, why it is important for India's journey in net zero, and why Jharkhand took that step, and how do we plan our transition, maybe for the similar states like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, those who are dependent on fossil fuel. I'll give you, Mr. Madhav, you told me about, land and degradation and rights. I'll give you brief about Jharkhand, those who are not familiar about Jharkhand. I believe I have 5-10 minutes to speak. 7 minutes. Okay. So, see, when we talk about climate, being a forest officer, it's always there that, India has to attain 33% of the land as a forest cover. And Jharkhand has already attained that. But if you look at other side, the land degradation is highest, that is about 69%. Why this is happening? One side we are saying having forest 33% and land is degraded 69%. Even degradation is happening even in forest land. So these are the two different dimensions of climate change. Other part is that we are not only supporting state energy security, Jharkhand is supporting energy security of the country also. So we have 30% of the country's coal, 40% of the minerals of the country, 15% of the critical minerals. And then what happens? 3.9% of GSG emission of country coming from Jharkhand, and we are contributing only less than 1.6% in GSDP. So there is a huge difference in development. Why I am saying these stats, transition become more difficult from social angle. And we did a study, political economy is driven by data, not by, philosophies or something. So we did a study and we came to know, a retrospective analysis of our budget we did. The 32% of the revenue of my state is coming from fossil fuel. And if you look at GSDP contribution, it is 54% of state GST coming from fossil fuel-based industry. Expense of economy impacted by fossil fuel is much larger than any other state. So I would like to thank NITI Aayog for inviting me and sharing my perspective from the state point of view. See, so much of dependence on fossil fuel, and Jharkhand has, sub-national level, 24, it is divided into 24 districts. And after 24, 12 districts are producing coal right now. If we talk about transition, then what will happen to these districts? 4 companies of Coal India and 1 company of NTPC Coal, they are working for excavating coal in the country, state. 80,000 hectares of land is available with Coal India. Huge infrastructure has been built, social infrastructure like evacuation, transmission lines have been built. And when we see that when India attains energy security, and when we migrate from fossil fuel to non-fossil fuel, the state concern is the social sector, what will happen, who is going to take care of the people around, those who have been working in coal mining areas from ages. For 200 years, their families have been working. If you go to Dhanbad, if you go to any district in around the Jharia coal field, so they are over-dependent on fossil fuel. And many times, we talk about, skilling, re-skilling, and, then it came to us that, why don't we skill labor force? What is going to happen? One study, was conducted. It is transition is not only about formal worker. It's not like Germany, you transit from formal worker transition. In India, especially in Jharkhand, transition is going to be, net zero journey is going to be much more difficult for informal workers because the ratio is 10 times higher. When you go to these areas, you see that, informal ecosystem which is established is much more predominant than the formal ecosystem. How do they transit? When we divert our economy, then who is going to take care of these formal workers? So 2 things are very important. We need to estimate what is going to be the impact. I have shared one study of Jharkhand coming from livelihood perspective to the NITI Aayog also, and I am happy now. This is the timely, we have released. I have not seen any planning. I have served for 36 years in the government. We are planning for 45 years, and these kind of hand holdings, these kind of a discourse now needs to go to the state level, because actual happening has to be there in the state. We are trying our best in our state. See, how do we augment, 32% revenue and over that, over and above, DMFT contribution which is coming, which is taking care of social sector. And being a social welfare state, who is going to take care of these workers? So we need to plan. What is the alternative? How do we decarbonize our industry? So we have prepared certain reports which are available on our website. I thank Madhav also for supporting us in some of the studies. See, the journey is not simple. Journey is that identify the stakeholder first. This entire transition, what my request to entire, stakeholder here is, identify the stakeholders, build their capacity, and find alternative ecosystem where states can earn revenues, where substitution of revenue is possible. Like energy transition, if we talk, Jharkhand can lead country's economy energy transition like in graphite. We have the largest deposit of graphite in my state. Another area which is becoming very popular now, graphene is becoming very, very popular. So why do you mine graphite? Why don't you convert into graphene? All 3 resources of graphene are available in Jharkhand. So there is a, hand holding is required where value addition is there in the state, within the state. If you migrate, because graphene production is possible from three resources, one from graphite, another is from the hydrocarbon methane, which is available in abundant quality. Converting CBD into fuel is much better that you convert it into graphene. Because I have seen the graphene, single layer graphene prices going right up to $10,000 per kg. And whereas if you convert it to CNG or PNG, if you utilize it, is 65 rupees a kg. Then why don't you put in a value to that ecosystem? Because 32% revenue substitution, which is going to impact social infrastructure in the state. Because how do you do it? That is very important for the state. And what we are trying to do, projecting to the state government that what is the impact, how do you plan your journey for 45 years. Baby steps are required, like identifying alternatives, like we have identified graphite. Another source of graphite could be, graphene could be, Jharkhand, we have Palash, that's the flame of forest. So the lac is going to be the game changer of India for graphene production. We are releasing a report very soon. I'll be sharing that report within the next 10 to 15 days. So far, graphene prices have been, this lac prices have been fluctuating like this. There's no demand. And when we talk about agriculture, solely agriculture plus horticulture plus floriculture is going to make changes. Like we produce a lot of tomatoes. Some of the districts produce a lot of tomatoes. We produce a lot of peas. How we can put them to more value additions, that is possible. And I have not gone through the report, but definitely, as Mr. Ashish has said, but some roadmap has been set, and there are certain guidelines, because many a times state governments are always looking for guidelines. Now we have guidelines in various thematic areas. It will give boost to institutions like Just Transition. Another is information dissemination in a state similarly situated. It says like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal. We need to consult, because wisdom is not confined to one individual. It's a collective wisdom. And I am very hopeful that these kind of deliberations, these kind of a discussion, definitely we are going to attain net zero much before the designated date. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rastogi. We are coming to a close end of this session, but I was wondering if there are one or two questions we can take, maybe two questions, if there are. Yes, please. Yes. It's a question.
Thank you, Madhav. I'm Neha Kumar. I was part of the climate finance group of this whole exercise. And thank you for this panel, because it is social equity and as a part of transition is extremely important. I was wondering if any of the panelists would take on the question of how do you see a public investment plus private investment role in the social equity space, which includes employment generation, which includes a lot of these things. So the nexus that sits at, raising resources for social good, I would not use the word good, but actually very important aspects, which is jobs creation, which is employment creation. How do you see the coming together of public and private investment in this space? It's a question to any panel to address. Thank you.
I would love to. I think why don't we respond to this question? Maybe also make a closing statement, and then we can wrap up. So we can start with you, and then.
I did not do justice to my colleague who put together those slides. So let me repeat some of the numbers. So if you look at India's current need, why am I advocating for food system approach? Number one, look at that. Currently, stunting, child wasting, undernutrition is so high in India that if India doesn't achieve SDG target, the rest of the world will not. And that's what is going to be the welfare implication of those. Unless you take care of them, the productivity is not going to be higher in the future for kind of the growth you need to achieve all those targets. So that is one. Second, when we say about the results, diet and nutrition, diet, why that is important? Diet is important because I did not know, I was kind of very surprised by this result. Number one is by 2050, India could cut its food-related emission by transitioning to healthy diet. Look at that, methane by 36%, nitrous oxide by 35%. These results are striking. And the second, diet shifts plus liberalized trade boost environmental and economic gains, cutting emissions and food cost across region. That's one. Second, my colleagues have also done some sub-national level analysis. Many of these, so the specific example that we are giving from Jharkhand or Karnataka, that can be teased out in a much more holistic way, with much more granularity, so that there are action can be directed to those particular findings. That is really, really important part, I thought. I see that Dr. Bharat left, so he went to Carnegie Mellon to do a degree in engineering and public policy. It's so impressive. I think if he could pull up these 300 professionals, who could? So kudos to him. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Do you want to reflect on the question? I mean, which is, yeah, public-private partnership, yeah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you typically look at, say, just transportation, most of the investment has come in the private sector. But the government has facilitated that in the sense that the government has come out with policies which has made it more road tax friendly, made it the power prices which has been fixed by the regulator is more friendly to EVs. So to that extent, government has kind of incentivized the private sector to invest. And most of the electrification of transportation, if you see, is incentivized by government, but the investment has all come from the private sector. So I think government should typically play the role of just being a facilitator, being an incentivizer, and most of the investment has to come from the private sector. I mean, all buildings which are made in most cities are made by the private sector.
I think two areas, particularly regarding skill, where we can participate with public and private partnership is possible. Because this demographic dividend which is happening in Eastern India, if you skill them properly, then I think we did one study. We talk a lot about skilling and green skills, but when we did in informal ecosystem, we realized that education level of the people is not up to that standard. So first you have to raise that standard, and ITIs, various ITIs, various, corporates they are running now, ITIs, they require different skill sets. So, different skill set in green energy, hydrogen, decarbonization, different EV manufacturing. A lot of different skill set is required where we can collaborate and we can work together. It will create a lot of greener jobs in that.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of small responses from me. One, I think transit-oriented development, like we said, I mean, there is such a large investment in metro. How can you actually do integrated? It's a huge, I mean, that is a clear place where this kind of partnership can be done, and there are a lot of examples. I think infrastructure sector, we haven't seen much climate investments flow yet, and that is clearly an opportunity. I think the other thing is, I think some of the mitigation sectors is easier to get much, like a bigger portion, almost 80 to 90% of private sector investment. Whereas I think, especially some of the adaptation sectors, as we talk about wasteland restoration, as some of, I think some blending of, public schemes, private sector investment, more low interest debt. So I think so I think that would mean some combination of public sector and private sector participation towards sort of, some development goals can also be developed. So I think adaptation and mitigation will require very different approaches, but I think it's something that is necessary, as you are completely aware, for us to start mobilizing. But with that, again, I'd like to ask all of you to give a big round of applause to the panel. Thank you very much. And of course, congratulations once again to NITI Aayog for the launch of these reports. And I think I think this really creates a new normal as we talk about the net zero conversations in our country. So thank you very much.
So thank you so much. And now to sum up this panel discussion and to conclude this entire event, may I request Dr. Anshu Bhadwat, sir, our Program Director of NITI Aayog, to kindly deliver a word of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And so this is the last session for this 1.5 days meeting. First of all, for this panel, I sincerely thank all the participants, to Madhav for chairing this and moderating this session and agreeing to our request. Thanks to Dr. Shahidul Rashid. It's been great to meet you. And since you're based in Delhi, we'll obviously be in touch with you to figure out what we can do together. Thanks to Ashish, sir. Thank you for coming all the way from Mumbai and giving the builder's perspective, which was very much wanted. And thanks to Ajay, sir, agreeing to our last-minute request, because very important to get the state perspective from Jharkhand. That was very important to us. And thanks to Uma, our colleague, who gave the Karnataka state perspective. So, friend, this is also the last session. And so I'll just give a few 5-minute closing remarks for the last 1.5 days of what we have seen through. So just to recap, this is the culmination of 1.5 years of effort, collective team effort in NITI, along with our knowledge partners who have worked very closely with us. Large group of organizations, knowledge partners, philanthropic foundations who supported us in this journey. How this work began was about 1.5 years back when in NITI, in our discussions, our CEO said that we have made a pledge of net zero, but we don't have a path of how we can get there. So let's figure out how India can deliver on its pledge by a set of well-quantified interventions where we say which intervention can do what and what it will cost, what policies are required. So that's how this work began. It was a mammoth exercise. As you saw, 10 working groups were constituted. Each working group was large, consisting of government, non-government, industry, experts, academia. It was a thorough effort which we went through. And what we have released in public domain are about 11 reports. As I said earlier, 10 reports are for one specific theme each. And one report is the overall summary report, which ties up everything together. So please go through that. I'm sure many of you would be wanting to give more comments. So you can reach out to us, send written comments, or speak to us at any time. This is also meant to be not a one-off exercise. It cannot be one-off exercise. So we have done it now. We will again pick it up again after we recover a bit from this, all the heavy lifting. We'll take a break for some time, then pick it up again after a year or so. By which time new technology would have emerged, costs would have changed, new geopolitical scenario would be there, and we'll then relook at what makes sense for India in those changed circumstances. So this is something which we in NITI intend to do periodically, once in maybe 2 years or so, so that it gives a broad direction to the nation, to states, industries, and all the ecosystem players. So that's all in the context of this. I have to thank a large number of people who have actively worked and put their heart and soul into this effort. So far, I'll begin by thanking CEO NITI, who genuinely believed in this work, who actually initiated, and the very fact that he has been with us for last 1.5 days. It's not very, not often that CEO sits through an event for not 1 hour, but 1.5 days. That shows how invested he is in this event. Thank you so much, sir. So, and he has been continuously touching base with us, engaging with us, giving us feedback. So thank you so much, sir. To all the chairpersons of the working groups, you heard them throughout the last 1.5 days. They were all seriously invested. They gave quality time, and their leadership helped us reach conclusions in the respective groups. So thanks to them and all the working group members. I must thank all our knowledge partners who have worked, out of passion, commitment, and goodness of heart with us. Most of them worked all pro bono with us. So sincere thanks to all of you, and to all the philanthropic foundations who supported this work. Our NITI team, Venugopal led this entire effort in NITI, and supported by Anjali, Nitin, Divya, Astha, Srishti. with overall guidance of our advisor energy, Rajnath ji, and also Manoj. So thanks to all of you. I must tell you, this has been a heavy lift. So all of us are now looking forward to this event getting over so that they can go and celebrate and have a bit of a party. But this was a serious effort. We have put in a huge hard work in the last several weeks to get these reports, quality check, the content-wise, editorial-wise, consistency. So it was a lot of effort. Sincere thanks to all my other NITI team members who have worked tirelessly as part of the reports, as well as for this event organization. I won't name them, it's a large group, but people helped in proofreading the reports, editing the reports very carefully, people helped in organizing this event, and many other ways. So thanks to all of them from our division of Green Transition, Energy, Climate Change. To our comms team, Kirti, Anna Roy, Bhanushri. As you can imagine, there are 11 reports, so they had to go through a lot of effort to get this thing done in time. And to our admin, of course, Reggie Mohan and Kalal for all their hard work. And to all the audience who have come who sat through the 3 sessions and took keen interest in the deliberations, I sincerely thank all of you. Many of you have come from outside Delhi, from different parts. Thank you for the interest, and we look forward to being engaged with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anshu Bhardwaj, sir, for the word of thanks. May I request our respected panelists to kindly come forward for the group photograph, please. And after this, I would request our knowledge partners and team of NITI Aayog to kindly come for the group photograph. I request all our knowledge partners and team of NITI to kindly, thank you, sir, thank you, to kindly come up on stage for the group photograph. अभी नहीं सर, अभी तो सबको थैंक्स एक बार वैसे ही करना है. पहले अभी और भी फोटोज अभी होने, पहले आप लोगों का हो जाए, फिर मुझे NITI आयोग की पूरी टीम बुलानी है. सर कुछ कह रहे हैं सर अभी हाँ पहले अभी फोटोग्राफ्स. अच्छा ठीक है, ओके सर जी, ओके. So on behalf of NITI Aayog, I express our gratitude and thanks to all of you for sparing time and being part of this event. Thank you so much, and please now join us for high tea. For VIP guests, it's been arranged at Vaishali, and for others, I mean all other guests, at Shabasti and Open Space. So please do join us for high tea, and once again, thanks to all of you. Thank you so much. Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.